Hi, everybody. All right. Looks like we have the quorum. Hey, Charlie. Well, it's 3:00. Let's get started. I know Ingrid let me know that she's not able to join us this evening. I don't know. I didn't hear anything from Steve Davis or Tony. Does anybody know if they're able to join us?
Tony let me know he could not attend the work sessions.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds like we got as many people as we're going to get. Who is the liaison for Vail? We have Vail up at 3:00. I'd love to have liaison introduce whoever we have.
I think it's Tony.
Oh, well, it's unfortunate. Do we have anybody from Vail that would like to introduce themselves and what they have going on?
Jonathan, at the last meeting, you were a little bit late coming in, and I ran, and there was somebody from the police department was on. I can't remember her name because I'm terrible with names.
I pull over
I see her.
Katie.
That's
Okay.
it.
And she can tell us who'd have.
Yeah, probably Avis and a couple others. They're in the attendee list.
I'm just going to promote everybody. There we go.
I'm Avis Larita, and I'm from the Vail board.
Hello, Avis.
Hello.
Hi, Avis.
Hi.
And I'm Melissa Jones, also from the Vail board.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
Well, yeah, so I think we have, it's good for a half hour. We just like to touch, hi, Councilor Davis, how you doing? We just like to touch base, at least once a year with all our boards and commissions. Make sure you guys still remember us, that we still remember you. This is an opportunity for you guys to give us feedback or make requests or to hear some of the challenges or opportunities that we're experiencing. So I guess I'll just turn it over to either Avis or Melissa. You can introduce yourselves and I'll give you guys the floor.
Thank you. I can go ahead and start. My name is Avis Larita, and I'm the co-chair for the board. And this is for the last 3 years, I've been on the board, and I've just started my second term. We meet once a month on the second Monday of the month at 7:30 in the morning. And right now, we currently only have 3 board members, and one will be leaving probably at the end of the school year. And so the difficulty that we're having is recruiting new applicants for the board. Probably this year, I would say maybe March, maybe in May, we haven't had a quorum, so we haven't been able to go forward. So that's the difficulty that we're having, is just with the applicants and recruiting new board members. And Melissa did just join this year. So we're happy to have her on board.
Yes, I think I've been there for about a month and a half, so I'm very new to it, but I was invited to this meeting, so I'm happy to attend and just get my feet wet and continue to learn.
So Avis or Melissa, do you have any ideas where we might be able to go out and help you recruit people? I know this is not, I don't want to put this is not a board that, we get lots of people applying for. I think it's been a problem for a while with the city, but any ideas of areas or groups of people, and we could see as council members what we can do to go out and try to help you recruit?
I know that it was published in the Post Independent. And like I said, about 4 years ago, that's how I learned about it, was through the Post Independent, just reading the newspaper. I don't know if people just aren't, because of COVID or such, that they're just not venturing out quite yet. And we do all our meetings right now on Zoom, but it's just been difficult for us.
Avis, because you have a lack of a quorum, are you not able to, I understand the Vail board distributes funds to victims of crime. Have you not been able to do that in several months then because of a lack of quorum?
We have not. And what we do is, obviously, number one is we do the reimbursement of victims of crimes. And then we also do grants for like River Bridge and Advocate Safe House. They request grants and we look at that and we look at the budget and we go ahead and get grants. So right now, because of, maybe it's again because of COVID, we haven't had that many applications for reimbursements of crimes. Most of our crime types are like hit and runs. That seems to be pretty common, or bicycle thefts, or like thefts of garages and stuff like that. So that's a typical crimes that we see just usually across the board. And there might be like 1 or 2 months, but then Katie Mulkey works really closely with the board through the police department. And she's able to reach out to those victims and just let them know what the procedures are and where we're at, and that we'll revisit it next month. So she's been able to really help in that aspect with contacting the victims.
And I guess that's one of my questions is, just to know more about what you guys do. What's like the average, I would say reimbursement rate, but somebody gets their bike stolen, like how does that process work?
Typically, we will reimburse up to $500 per case. I mean, it can vary. There can be certain circumstances, but typically it's $500. So a lot of people, if it's like a hit and run, their insurance may pick it up, but a lot of people have a $500 deductible. So they request that. And then bicycles are really expensive now as well. And so people may or may not have their insurance companies, reimburse, but oftentimes, again, there's, they don't have the first $500. So typically it's $500. And then the grants that we do typically for River Bridge and Advocate Safe House, it can be anywhere from $7,500 to $10,000 per year. And they typically just apply once a year.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Avis or Melissa?
Avis, I'm sorry, you said River Bridge. What was the other one?
Advocate Safe House.
And nobody else knows about these grants, or nobody else?
Those are the only two, since I've been on the board, those are the only two nonprofit entities that have applied for grants through the Vail board. And I know there's other avenues that they can go through,
Right.
through the city or the county, but through the Vail board, those are the only two.
And do you publicize?
I'll reveal my conflict of interest. Oops, sorry, go ahead, Paula.
I was just wondering how you publicize that these grants are available. And
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I don't know if they're published through the paper or just word of mouth. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
If I may, Paula, just jump in. Oftentimes during the course of prosecution, or even in their contact with the police department, they're given information as a victim that this program may be available to them.
And that's one part of it, Carl. The other part is, I think Paul was asking us about the grants. And I'm on the board, so I'll reveal my conflict. I'm the board of River Bridge. So I know we've gotten grants from you in the past and they're appreciated. But I'll defer to Shelley, but maybe Ryan can give us an idea of when we can advertise. And I'm wondering if Avis and Melissa, if you guys could maybe write a short article or something, and we could we could co-sign with you or something to say we need people. And this is a great organization helping victims out. And I don't know that people understand exactly what the board does. So if I saw a Vail board advertised, I'm not quite sure you conceptualize what good, important work you guys are doing. So just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Yeah, Charlie, I think that's a great idea too. And my understanding of the grants, Avis, and you could let me know, or Katie, I thought they were somewhat, targeted to organizations or nonprofits that help victims of crime. So it's specifically to that. So there's not necessarily a huge array of those within the city. But yeah, I like the idea of putting a letter out, whether either, someone from the board can get together and write it, or if it comes kind of from staff and the police department too. I think that would be really effective.
So just to answer Charlie's question, we're advertising for the Vail position every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, starting Monday and then Monday, Wednesday, until the end of May. So for the next 5 paper posts.
Thanks, Ryan. I knew I'd seen ads. I didn't remember if Vail was on there or not, so thank you.
Deborah, did you have something?
Yes, I was just going to, in relation to the grants, I think this fund has so little money in it. I could be getting it wrong, but it's about $38,000 that I think we've always probably tried to reserve those funds for those nonprofits because the money's not building up in the other direction. It just goes down a little bit every year.
That's correct, Deborah. In the past, we were able to give Riverbridge and Advocate Safe House a lot more money, like 20 to 25,000. The last couple of years, we've had to go down to, I believe the last one was 7,000 because the fund is not building back up like it was.
And do we know why that is? How's that revenue stream changed?
I honestly do not have a good idea about that. We can maybe try to get that back to you. I just think we just get less money into it, unless Steve happens to know.
I'll throw what I know, and it's based on when you're convicted of a crime of any kind, a traffic offense or anything, they have a bunch of surcharges, and one of those is a victim compensation surcharge, and I think those have gone down, or some of, course, because of COVID, because not many people are coming into court and things like that. It seems to me there's something tied into the actual fund and how it's funded that has changed in the last couple of years. That's what I remember hearing from Riverbridge when I was at a board meeting. So,
well, and I can just jump in real quick. We have been issuing a lot fewer tickets, speeding tickets and that kind of stuff. So our municipal court has been slower than normal. And I think that's the primary reason for that. So Charlie, I think you're right.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, I was looking for my hand and used that one. Mostly I want to say, Avis and Melissa, thank you for doing this, especially if you're losing a member. I hope we don't lose you. And we'll do what we can to encourage this search for additional members. It's a great program.
Hey, Katie, I don't know if you were on when we talked about it, but maybe you could work with Avis and or Melissa and maybe do a letter to the editor from current board members, say, hey, this is the great job. This is what we're doing. We're helping victims, and we really would like you to participate. You know, I think it would help, particularly Avis, you and Melissa be willing to sign off on that and say, you know, this is why we do this, you know, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I would like to do that.
Go ahead, Deborah.
And I was going to say, if you guys need help with that, Katie included, let my office know and we can help with that.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Avis, Melissa, thank you so much for what you do. Thanks for hanging in there. We'll try to get you a little bit more help, at least get you a quorum here in the next couple of months. So we're really appreciative of all of our boards and commissions and the work they do. That absolutely extends to work you guys do. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. Next item on the agenda, we have a little bit of time, as long as I can bring it up. The DDA. I don't know if we have folks here yet from the DDA, but let me go over to the attendees list. We have a couple. Maybe we'll wait 5 minutes because starting 15 minutes early than our scheduled time is not probably awesome. So is that okay if we all wait minutes or so until, I mean, we'll start a little bit early, but starting 15 minutes early is probably tough. Yep. Okay. Be back here at let's call it 3:22. That'll get us probably started, and some people can catch up after introductions and some small talk. And Christian or Kevin, if you have a few people that you're able to text and let them know that we might be getting on a little bit early, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Henney.
Good afternoon, Councilor Willman. Mr. Mayor, oh, I was just going to say if you could promote Laura, but you just did it, so I will stop talking.
You keep talking. I'm kind of bored.
Well, I'm just impressed you're running ahead of schedule. That throws off my whole sports book.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, when the only two people from the Vail board and their council liaison does not show up, those sessions tend to go pretty efficiently.
Well, I'm sorry if we should have been here earlier.
No, nope, not at all, not at all. Normally an efficient run city would probably be like, just show 15 minutes in case they go early. That's never us. Never. The county commissioners sometimes, yeah, you got to keep your head on a swivel. If they say, if you're on the agenda for like 8th item on the agenda, you're like, oh, well, it'll take them a good half hour to get through all that other stuff. Like, nah, sometimes like you're on 5 minutes after they start. They actually are very quick.
Well, I'm hoping you'll get done before 10 tonight, so.
We will.
You've got a big agenda, but I hear some items may have moved, so.
Maybe. I think we added some. That's what's moved. Is there anybody else I need to promote?
I'm looking at the attendees list and no one yet. We do have Kevin Brady here along with Laura Kirk. Would you like us to keep waiting, Mr. Mayor, or would you like us to start rambling?
You know, I really only care what you have to say, Christian. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Kevin. I'm kidding, Laura.
No, I'm happy to let Christian talk. So
I would say, yeah, let's kick it off. And I'm looking at the attendees list on my computer. So when I see people come in, I'll pop them in. But yeah, I think we all know who everybody is. So we probably can even skip introductions. But Laura, Christian, Kevin, the floor is yours.
Great.
Well, I'd just like to go ahead, Laura.
No, you go, Christian.
Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to say thank you to council for agreeing to sit down and have this annual conversation with us. Obviously, the last year has been challenging, and to put it mildly, and we had to shift gears rapidly, which I'm very proud of what we accomplished, cooperating and partnering with the city, with the chamber. We have a quick list of some of our accomplishments that happened in 2020, and I'd like to run down that quickly, just so to get everybody on the same page about, hopefully you're aware of the things we got done, but we developed a more collaborative relationship with city staff and the chamber. We participated in grants to downtown businesses and restaurants. We worked with the city and chamber on ad campaigns and other promotional efforts. We supported active use of outdoor dining under the bridge and in other locations. We were part of installing the wings around downtown as an art project. We improved the Bethel lot with the food truck and with the paving, so it's not the mess that it had been. We added wayfinding kiosks to downtown, one installed last year, and there's 2 more going to happen this year. We worked on facade grants for Sunday's ice cream shop. We completed and you approved the DDA plan of development update that was required, by law. And then we launched a new DDA website and logo that are more up to date and we think has a better reflection on the city and what we're trying to accomplish. So that's just a kind of a short list of what we got accomplished in the very difficult year of COVID.
Yeah, and I think what I would add to that is sort of what felt the best through the year was the relationships and the collaboration that we did with the city and the chamber. I think that the city staff and the chamber and the DDA are working really well together and in sync, and that's certainly important in a crisis. And we were all rowing in the same direction. And I think that those relationships will provide a really good continued foundation for us to move forward and make some great things happen for the community. So I think we're all collectively most proud of that.
Agreed.
That's fantastic to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then when we start thinking about 2021, certainly we want to support the businesses coming out of the pandemic. Some of the recent sales tax information is encouraging in that we're seeing that uptick in business and kind of a return to more kind of commensurate with what we saw in 2019 from 2020. A thing that I'm sure that you all are aware of, but we're all hearing about, is the incredible difficulty in finding employees. And that is a real barrier to success as we start moving forward. I think every restaurant, retail operation, hotel, and even professional services, whatever, is struggling in that regard. And so, trying to brainstorm with the city and the chamber and others about how we can attack that problem, because it's a collective one and it has a huge impact on our ability to service both our residents and our tourists. And what we are hearing and seeing is that many business owners are working double, triple shifts and simply can't stay open enough, so that you might go downtown on a Monday night and there are long lines at the restaurants that are open and others have closed because people are kind of maxed out. So it's not an easy thing to solve, and it's not an easy thing to solve in a short time frame. Certainly, there are lots of components of it: housing, unemployment benefits, lack of the J1 permits, all of that. And it looks like Christian has his hand up, so I'm gonna let him speak too.
I was just going to say, Jonathan, if you could let Chad Lee in, but you just did, so I will lower my hand. And I was going to add on the employment issues that we're all facing. Two of the biggest barriers that are hurting all the businesses in town is the lack of affordable workforce housing and the lack of childcare or daycare. If you can even afford childcare or daycare, you're on. I'm being told, people are being told they're on wait lists for over a year. So those are two items that I would love for us to talk maybe a little bit more about. But I certainly would like Laura to finish down kind of all of our 2021 priorities, and then we could open this back up.
Yep, so we'll come back to that. But certainly other priorities, we want to continue collaboration with the city staff and the chamber on additional kind of economic development initiatives, events, et cetera, to continue to create that vitality in the downtown. As you all are aware, we have the Rocky Mountaineer train that will start up in mid-August. And that kind of cycles back to that earlier discussion about the lack of employees, because we need restaurants and retail shops open when that train comes through, so that we can put a good face on, because then we have the potential of securing a multi-year, I think I've even like a 10-year contract with that train. And that's a great influx of people coming to Glenwood. We had an RFP out for finishing the construction drawings for 6th Street from Pine to Laurel. We were successful in receiving 3 proposal responses for that project earlier this week. Those proposal, the numbers are in line below what we had budgeted for that. And so we are in the process of going through that ranking system. And I believe a proposal will come back to the council, not tonight, but 2 weeks from now. We're continuing to use the Facade Grant program, and it's exciting to see additional redevelopment happening in the downtown area. So the Daily Bread is doing some work. Whether or not he may be more focused this year on internal improvements. I think the project got a little bigger, but he does intend either this year or next year to replace his awning and do some painting on the front of the building. And also there's a redevelopment happening at 818 Grand, and we're supporting that facade improvement as well. We are working on additional options for murals in the downtown. The Wings program has been very successful in terms of social media. Even, you know, in the Glenwood Elementary School, the kids made little wings, and, you know, so it's just had a great, it's been a great catalyst, I think, for both community discussion and for advertising for the city through social media. We had been contacted by the owner of the building that faces the wall there on the Bethel lot. We were not successful in getting the grant from the National Endowment of the Arts to move forward with murals, but that owner of that building wall has been in contact with us, and Jen Uten and I and others are working to see if we can come forward, and we'd come back to you with a proposal at some point about getting a mural on that wall. And certainly that's a high profile wall, and it'd be great to have an appropriate mural on that greeting people as they come into the city. We're working with the city. The city was successful in getting a grant through CDOT to provide some additional bike racks in the downtown. And some of those are going to be covered, as well as sort of more traditional bike racks. We're continuing our lease. We're renewing the lease with Agnes at the food truck for another year. And I don't know how many of you have had an opportunity to meet Agnes, but she's a wonderful ambassador for the city of Glenwood. She's just a delightful person. She's been great to work with. I think most of the city staff know her. So we're very excited to have her there. And I think it really helps create additional activation in that under the bridge area. I know that this is something that has been important to the council, and we had a workshop with the Planning and Zoning Commission a couple of weeks ago to talk about how to attract the kind of vitality and businesses and uses that we want in the downtown, looking at both additional codes and design guidelines, as well as looking at incentives to bring the types of uses that we want to the downtown. So if you will, a carrot and a stick approach. And that we've had kind of an initial discussion. We talked about this at our DDA board meeting this week, and Christian and Marco are going to be meeting soon to come up with kind of a running list of some ideas. And we anticipate another workshop in early June between those that commission and the board, and then meeting with the council later. So it's exciting to see some movement happening in that regard. And I think that kind of brings up something that the planning and zoning and the DDA board and others are interested in, and that is more joint meetings between commissions, so that we would also have some meetings with the Transportation Board and the Arts and Culture Board, so that, again, through that collaboration and collective energy, we can all move forward together. A big item, we are working with engineering in the city on managed parking and looking at paid parking in the downtown. We are strategizing about the timing of that, not wanting to overwhelm the business community at a time where they're feeling stretched with not having enough staff. So exactly the timing of when that's going to roll out, I think, is still to be determined. As part of that, and I don't know if some of you have been aware of this, but I think some residents are in the downtown area are concerned about delivery trucks spilling out into the residential areas. So as we look at that parking issue, we also need to take up how to manage deliveries in the downtown area. We are working with Linda Dupriest on bike share, scooters, other transit options to kind of address that last mile. And then just finally, kind of on our running list here, we've been working with Debbie Wild and others to assist with situations related to homelessness. And she's been running some great webinars. And Kevin Brady, who's on the call here, he and Sharon helped sponsored one of those on dealing with difficult behaviors. They've been well attended, and Debbie's been very helpful as we hear of incidents that arise in the downtown. So that's kind of a brief summary of some things that we're excited to be moving forward, and now open it up to conversation. I don't know if any of the other DDA board members want to add anything, or that's my.
I'll just chime in quickly. Thank you, Laura. Obviously, we're proud of what we've accomplished in the last year, and we think we've got the right things to move forward, and we feel we're working in the right direction. We're certainly here to engage with council and to hear if you agree with the directions we're going. Do you like what we're doing? Is there something you think we're missing? But we certainly know we we are here to serve and assist you, as well as act independently. So we certainly are looking for feedback and direction. And I know Chad is here along with Kevin, if either of them want to say anything before council, but we certainly are here to have an open dialogue with council.
Yeah, agree with that. And thank you, Laura. Great job. We, as a board, just like you guys, struggled with the uncertainty of the past 15 months and tried to do the best we could with the resources we had. Luckily, we had planned on rewriting our plan of development. And so it was a good opportunity to focus on that instead of some of the larger infrastructure projects that we had been focused on previously. I think one of the I guess, ways that the DDA has pivoted a bit in the past 4 years that I've been on is we're still focusing on infrastructure. We call it placemaking now, which I like better. But we're also focusing on how else we can encourage economic vitality and activation of those spaces downtown, which we believe breeds economic activity. So we're here just looking for direction from you guys. Thanks for having us, and looking forward to you guys' thoughts.
One thing I'd just like to say, is I feel like that a lot's been done that had to be done a long time ago, but just never got to it. Like the recreation of the website and the work that was done for that, I think was really vital and really important in terms of introducing people to what DDA is exactly. The one thing I'm kind of excited about, although I missed the planning and zoning meeting myself, one thing I really like is the fact that you have these joint meetings taking place now within, for lack of a better word, interagencies, because we overlap each other so often, but yet the communication doesn't always seem to reach each party and what interests they may have involved in that. And so that's the piece I'm really most excited about. It's been a real pleasure working with the DDA these first 2 years. Thank you.
All right, I'll open it up for comments, questions from the council. Go ahead, Paula.
Great job, you guys. All the time that you put into this, really appreciate it. Makes a big difference for our town, especially, as you said, in a year of COVID. I was recently in a meeting and with talking about grants, and there was nothing from the downtown market. And I know that really makes a difference on Tuesday evenings. Do you guys know if that's still going to happen this year? It seems like events are the big thing to really activate downtown. I'm curious about downtown market. I'm curious about what other events the DDA hopes to coordinate. Christian, I know there's all sorts of things that used to happen in the plaza around Hotel Colorado, and all of those kind of excite our visitors. So we just kind of wanted to get a little more depth on those kind of activities for spring, summer, fall.
A lot of the maybe let Deborah go first. Go ahead, Deborah.
I was going to answer what I knew. I do believe the farmers market is going forward. I just don't think they didn't apply for a Facade Grant.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my understanding too, is that the farmers market is going forward. Pat Miller with the city he met with the DDA board on Tuesday, and he'll have a trailer that he'll put behind Agnes's food truck on that lot, kind of near the fence where the propane tanks were this winter. And he is going to start an event program that will begin kind of July through mid-August or so. And so, he's thinking about movies. He's been reaching out to some people to bring music down there, and some things like that. I think he's still thinking about, or kind of, we're trying to decide what's going to happen on the 4th of July. It's a moving target, but I don't think it's not envisioned as a giant event, but something. And then you all are probably aware that the chamber is not doing strawberry days, but they are doing berry weekend. And so there will be some activity associated with that. In terms of other kinds, so that's sort of the event lineup as I'm aware of it.
Yeah,
and go ahead. Sorry,
Paul. It's something we're aware of, and we intend to coordinate with the chamber. One thing that was interesting that came up at the planning commission meeting was a lot of the vendors downtown said that they prefer the smaller events over the larger events, and so that's something that we're going to focus on in the future.
And just on that note, I know the River Commission is coming up with their annual restoration, and then they end up with stuff happening for the people who volunteer. That's a great way to get people from out of town in. Glenwood Canyon Restoration Alliance has people coming all the way from Denver in big groups, and I just hope that we're finding ways to kind of accommodate these visitors to make sure that when they show up in town that the welcome mat's put out. And I know that's not totally DDA, it's all sorts of different people involved in there, but just throwing that out there. And the other thing I was kind of curious, well, two things. One, I can't wait to hear the ideas for bringing other businesses downtown, especially as we talk about changing city code. I want to make sure I say that right, towards, really kind of making those street level buildings more accessible to retail outlets. So I'm excited to see what kind of ideas you have. And then I'm also kind of very intrigued on 6th Street design and what those are going to look like. So just appreciate you guys putting your efforts into those two projects.
Thanks, Paula. So I can say that the 6th Street design right now is following the 6th Street master plan. So it's taking the plans that have already been done and now doing the engineering and all of the all the underground planning for all the utility work and bringing that vision forward. So we've not gone back to the drawing board to create another vision where there was already a large amount of community involvement and whole 6th Street commission that put that together before I was in this town. But I think they did a great job, and we're really concerned about how 6th Street is really turning into a desolate area now that you've got the Fiesta Guadalajara closed, you've got the KFC closed, the liquor stores never reopened, the florist shop is closed, the brew garden has closed and never reopened. So it's definitely not looking great when tourists come from all the other hotels and walk through that area and head to over the bridge or head to the pool.
Ouch. Well, I'm glad it's coming. Hopefully we can get that going and see what we can do to reactivate that. Thank you.
Kevin Brady.
Yeah, I had a question since Christian just brought up 6th Street and all that. I heard that Sioux Villa has been sold, that building. That's the rumor that I've heard. I don't know if you've heard that, but that's something that has come down the pipeline to me. I heard that a few weeks ago, but I haven't mentioned it to anyone. Has anyone heard that as well?
I believe Sioux Villa is owned by the pool, so I don't believe that that's sold. Is that correct? Charlie and Christian probably know more about that than I do, but that's my.
Yeah, last time I talked to Shaw Mitchell, they held Sioux Villa because we had a conversation about the 6th Street development, and I didn't get any indication from him they were thinking about selling the building. So I'd be surprised to hear that, Kevin, but things happen that we don't hear about too.
Kevin, I think that what may have gotten misconstrued through the neighborhood rumor mill was the pool did buy the building that has Chomps and had used to have the marijuana store. They own that now too.
Okay, yeah, that's probably it then. Thank you.
Shelley, go ahead.
I just want to say I'm so impressed with everything that you guys accomplished the last year. I know it was a really tough year, but all the collaboration and the support of the businesses and just getting through this, you've done a fantastic job. And I think the DDA, the things that you've brought up, I completely agree with the direction that you're heading for 2021. Certainly 6th Street area needs to be redone. And I don't know if there are active conversations with the pool on if they have development plans on some of those properties over there, but as a large property owner, hopefully that's going on. I'd love to see some of that going on. I also appreciate your comment on the housing, as with the employment crisis that we're in right now, trying to find employees. There are many different reasons for that, but we've had this crisis building in housing for a long time. And we do have an item on our agenda. In fact, our next work session is with the Housing Commission and a project that they want to move forward. And I really hope that, the city can work again in partnership. We're working on code changes and things like that, but also just actively investing in housing, I think is an important thing. And we'll be looking for, I think the concept on that for community housing is to look for business partnerships, and especially from some of the larger employees, so coming together as a community to work on this housing issue, I think is really important. And I like your idea of meeting with the other groups. I'm a liaison to the Arts and Culture Board, and I know they're really excited about, activating more public art throughout the city, and certainly downtown would be a big part of that. So looking at the murals and everything, and I'm sure they would appreciate working with you all and being kept in the loop on the arts things coming forward. The other thing, I did have a question on 6th Street. Is there any activity or any thoughts on moving the North Landing property forward, or are you guys waiting for council to take action on that? Just
go ahead, Charlie.
Charlie, and then I'll chime in after Charlie.
Okay.
Yeah, let me start. Chris, good feeling if I got blanks there. Just a couple of things in general comments. First of all, the downtown market, last I heard, was going. My office did some money for support of that, so I'm pretty sure. I can't remember when she said they were going to start. I thought it was soon, but I think they usually start right around the 1st of June. On the North 6th Street, the old Chomps, not Chomps Deli, but the old marijuana place, the pool has leased that to the Arts Council. And I had a conversation with Lori Chase, the president of that board, last week. And that kind of ties into the North Landing conversation about having them maybe help us activate that area. I'm going to try to meet with their board here in the next couple of weeks to see what they may be willing to do. As we know, we're trying to make sure when we activate that area, we try to activate it under either a short-term lease or something with a private property owner. I think it's going to help better allow us to control the use of that area. As I reported at the last meeting, I think the Parks Department is going to undertake a kind of a spruce up of the vegetation in that area without a permanent basis, but at least to make it look a little bit nicer. And then Christian and I had a meeting with Dave Howder, who's part of the North Caucus, and I've been meaning to follow up with Ashley Moffin. I haven't had a chance to do that because of my work schedule, but they're very interested in not only the North Landing, but parking in that area as it relates to the development of 6th Street. So I think that's kind of everything I wanted to kind of add to what I knew and Laura's has indicated. So, Christian?
Great.
Yeah, and Shelley, we didn't want to start project creep on the 6th Street project. I think it's important that something be done with the North Landing. Charlie makes all the good points about coming up with a private partnership so that we can control what happens on the property. But ultimately, the North Glenwood neighborhood is jumping at the bit for something to be done there. It does look pretty terrible, but we didn't know where our bids would come in on the construction drawings and the engineering, and we didn't want to, have projects creep and then we're outside of our budget for the engineering and design, and then blow past the budget that's set aside for 6th Street. So we're trying to be very conscious of our budget right now and not just be the, we design it and, you guys build it. So
right. That makes sense.
We would love to hear some, direction. If council, wants us to get involved on the landing, please give us some direction, and we're happy to do it.
Great.
And Jennifer Uten is on the line, and she might be able to also add to that, Shelley. We had a meeting among several of us about to make sure as we do the 6th Street design, we can't plan North Landing, but we plan for what may happen there. And I think Jen can weigh in, and I think the idea is that we work on the final development plans for the street that we're going to be doing. That Jen, you correct if I just said that all wrong. So.
Yeah, I think we were just talking about, is there a way to activate the space, just because that's really what will help make improvements to the corridor successful. Is it's not just a build it and they will come, but build it and have it activated kind of feeling. So we met with the Arts Council, and we've been having some internal meetings about just, I think Charlie mentioned it at the last city council meeting about reinvigorating the turf. That's not the term that Parks uses.
Right. But yeah, I think doing that and cleaning it up from the landscape point of view, and even if we could do some of the trees that are in containers, if we don't want to plant permanent trees at this time, not knowing what's to go on the site, I know that kind of thing would be appreciated. And I'll just plug one more comment for the TTA. I'm definitely excited about the paid parking. I think it's time, and from what I've heard in my discussions with businesses, it's time to move forward on that. So I hope it won't get delayed too much, but we'll see how that unfolds and progresses. That's all I have. Thanks, you guys. You're doing a great job.
Thanks. Go ahead, Kevin. I saw your hand up.
Yeah. Can we, would the North Landing work for some temporary kiosks during the season? Like just little shops?
I think it could. I think that's something that we've been talking a little bit about. And so I think those kinds of proposals, I think it's a good thing to add to our list. And so I appreciate you bringing that up, Shelley, that we want to keep moving that conversations forward. And we've had a couple of, as Jen and Charlie and Christian have noted. So we'll put that on our list and keep moving those conversations forward.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, sorry. One thing I want to cover, I forgot to mention, that was the issue that that Christian and Laura kind of started this out with, and that's the need to energize the employment sector. And I don't know what we as council can do to help that. I saw the governor today. I think if I read the Denver Post correctly, they're talking about some kind of a payment bonus for people to go back to work. I think we ought to be on top of that. I don't know what we can do to help do that, but it was a fairly significant amount of money if somebody went off of unemployment and went to work and they were given a bonus. I see Deborah popped in, so maybe she can add to that. But I think anything we can do as a city or city council, whatever it is that we can do to help encourage people to come back to work or to try to help find solutions for housing and daycare. I know those are big issues and they're not easy solutions, but I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I was just going to add, we have been talking about this with the business community, and I think it's different in each sector. Like construction is, it's not that the wages aren't high enough or they're not higher than unemployment. It's just they're physically not enough workers to do the work here that they. So, I mean, I think it's extraordinarily complicated. But I mean, I think we're continuing to work towards it. I know Angie tried to put together a web page that consolidated requests, and I think we're thinking about what we could potentially do with daycare, but I don't want to give anyone the idea that we have a magic solution we're going to pull out of our hat for the summer. It's nationwide.
Go ahead, Paula.
I think Deborah just kind of answered my question. That collaborative effort of providing daycare between businesses, kind of like Shelley spoke to with our housing commission, saying if we could get businesses involved in one of these projects, that might help as far as a housing thing. And I just don't know if that's a DDA role of bringing businesses to collaborate to resolve a problem. If the brew garden is closed, is that a place for 5 or 6 businesses to get together and find a childcare opportunity and use that? So I just don't know if you guys work that way or if that's just kind of too broad of a thing that DDA would get involved in.
I mean, Laura, I think what I could do is if Angie and I pull together, like a little ad hoc committee, just one Friday afternoon, I could always invite you to that. But I think the chamber is the best person to kind of pull businesses together. But we could work through that partnership we developed over last year.
Yep, and we are continuing to have active, we have monthly calls as a group kind of talking about some of these, and in one of the last ones, there may be some short-term housing solutions for the summer that Angie and Jen were going to follow up on. So we are kind of talking about those things and tracking them down, and I don't know, at some point we may have a new entity moving into the brew garden, which would also be great. So, and just working with Matt Nunez, I would just wanted to say too, the economic development specialist, he's just fabulous to work with. So really enjoyed that. Sorry, Deborah.
Oh, no, that's okay. I just wanted to let council know, like, it's not just businesses, right? We cannot hire people for what we've been able to traditionally hire in the community center. So there are going to be some days where the pool is just shut down because we simply don't have enough lifeguards. So you guys may be hearing that across our level of services as well.
Yeah, right now on Monday nights, there's 5 restaurants closed downtown. Smoke is actually going to be closing 2 nights now, from what I understand, on Sunday and Monday, because they don't have enough employees. I've just worked three double shifts myself the last 3 nights, but we finally hired someone. The employment issue is what's happening as well is contractors are also beginning to poach employees from restaurants. There's some of that going on, offering them $30 an hour to come work construction jobs for them. So the employment thing's real. It's not going to get any better. It's actually, the timing couldn't be worse in terms of having the Mountaineer train coming in, and we have businesses closing, maybe not just for the full day, but reducing their hours. We actually considered reducing our hours, but now that we've been able to get someone, we're not going to be doing that. But that's just an FYI from a small business owner in the downtown core. There is a lot of concern towards this. And as Deborah mentioned before, she and Jen held a meeting a few weeks ago over at the City Hall. And one thing that was very clear, there's all sorts of different needs from different parties. It's not just the retail business.
Yeah, no, I would say, I saw that Smoke's closed Sunday and Monday. They're not open for lunch at all. I mean, I think it's one of our lead restaurants. I enjoy the heck out of Smoke. It's only open 26 hours a week at this point, going into summer. That's crazy. And I've heard wages and housing and childcare. A lot of this stuff we're talking about is forget about the economic. I mean, we shouldn't forget about this, what this conversation is based on, but these are quality of life issues. There's a lot of parents that can't make the determination because, I had 2 children in infant, toddler, childcare at one time, and it was cost prohibitive over a decade ago. So I don't know how we fix this as a community. It's definitely a nationwide problem. Governor Polis has been, he ran on trying to work on pre-K, universal pre-K, and he hasn't been able to solve it. And that's just one piece of it. So I think it's so much more than this conversation about specifically workers, specifically this summer or coming out of COVID. It's this kind of community-wide quality of life conversation that extends to parks and open space and trails and hot springs and the whole like. So I don't know where I'm going with this other than to say that, this quality of life that we have and that we do enjoy also contributes to the high cost of housing and a lot of the challenges that we have, the transportation gridlock that we experience, especially now that A&B Bank has taken a lane of 82 for this week. So I guess, to echo, I think Shelley's point, I'm really glad and I would like to encourage different boards and commissions to meet with each other. I think that collaboration is really, really good. I would encourage staff to think about what other boards and commissions could collaborate, even if we have 2 or 3 boards or commissions meet. Obviously, we'd have to have council liaisons there, or we'd have to, but we need to notice it. So if that happened, we'd be covered for open meeting laws. But those are those quality of life issues that aren't going to be solved by just getting a few more workers in the area. So anyway, I also want to say anything we can do to get rid of that Pepto-Bismol wall next to the Leslie Bethel lot, anything we can do to activate that lot, even more that we do temporary vendors or whatnot. I would be excited to see that. Thank you for all you guys are doing. That master plan on 6th Street, if people haven't had, I'm sure everybody on this call has had a chance to read it and review it, but it's actually one of those works of arts. Like, I'm glad that you guys are using that as a guiding document for designing the utilities and streetscaping, because I think it's neat. I think it's something the entire community bought into, 6-7 years ago, and it took a long time. Charlie can probably give way more history than that, but having that as the guiding document, I think, is going to be really important to getting the buy-in to bring back 6th Street. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? Go ahead, Charlie.
I could just say one more thing. Both Steve and I go to the DDA meetings, and I want to tell you, those meetings are very invigorating. There's really lively discussions among the members. They're very all actively engaged, and I really want to thank them for their time, and Laura for her time, and Christian for his, and getting the direction and keeping that agency moving forward. And they're going to come up for renewal here in the next several years as well. So it's very, I think, important to the city that we continue to work together at the DDA, so when we renew it, there isn't really any issue about that. But I want to thank everybody, and I want to compliment Kevin. He finally figured out how to use the mute button tonight, so he was having some trouble the other day.
It's because I actually got some sleep after being so tired with these double shifts. Now, if any of you want to come and volunteer, I'm sure all of you could know how to work an iPad. Do I see some volunteers on some?
Charlie and I will speak for Charlie. after Memorial Day. We'll work for bourbon.
Is it my choice for bourbon or is it your choice for bourbon?
I actually trust you, Kevin. Your taste is better than mine.
I'll take you up on that. It'd probably be cheaper than what I have to pay you per hour.
We very much appreciate the opportunity to meet with you. We know you have busy schedules, so thank you. And we are so looking forward to seeing everybody again in person. I look forward to being, just seeing you more casually and informally downtown for coffee or just passing by on the street. And it just feels great to be reopening. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody. We really appreciate all the work you guys are doing. We appreciate how you're interacting with other groups and that collaborative effort. And we look forward to seeing recommendations come out of you guys in the next quarter, 6 months, and year.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, council. Thank you, staff.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
All right, next up, we have RFP, city-owned property housing RFQ, excuse me. Who's taking the lead on this one? Oh.
Probably promote Hannah and Bobby, Randy Dole. Let's see who else is on there. Aaron. Looks like we're missing.
Sumner's there. Sumner.
Oh, is Sumner there?
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, it showed up. Yep.
All right. So is this Housing Commission or is this? Oh, it is Housing Commission. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Hannah Klausman with Community Development Department. I heard you guys were solving world problems, so I thought I'd come with some housing questions for you. Looks like you were already digging into that in the last topic, so we'll just chug on right ahead. I think most of Housing Commission was able to attend. I see Sumner and Ellen and Aaron, and Bobby Hodge, which is our newest member that you guys appointed at your last meeting, so thanks for that. So I'll start this off and then we can get to our commissioners and your questions as well. So the work session is to take a look at the RFQ. So in my staff report, I did point out the Housing Commission has been working hard on the direction for the 2 city-owned properties that were identified for a possible housing project. We've been holding conversations in the community with businesses and organizations and also funding partners to get an idea of if there is possibly an interest and who we might want to send out an RFQ for that development interest. Also, 3 of us, Shelley, myself, and Ellen we just finished an 8-week, I'm going to call it intensive because there was a lot of information, housing equity campaign training series that's aimed at helping nonprofits and also municipal governments develop affordable housing projects. So to do that in 8 weeks, again, always drinking from the fire hose there, but I think it was great training. I think we learned a lot and it helped us to present this RFQ that we're talking about tonight. So we did draft that up. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions, but what we've brought back for you to kind of review and talk about tonight, Housing Commission put in some project parameters for your consideration of what, at least from a Housing Commission perspective, we think the city would like to see on a possible housing project on these 2 properties. And if you need a reminder of where those properties are for consideration, the corner of 8th and Midland, and also a property known as the Iddings property, which is out towards the airport. close to another housing development that went up a couple years ago that the school district houses its employees at. So I'm going to go over a couple of the questions that Housing Commission has for council, and then open it up for discussion on the RFQ and questions on that. So really we want to see that City Council agrees with the parameters that we put in for the project, which are called out in the staff report and also in the RFQ. Also consideration of how we do the land use process itself. So this is city-owned property, and some considerations for council on how that is contributed to the project, either leased or transferred, donated. There's several options, and we can chat about what those mean. And then also some considerations for funding, which is, I know, always challenging, but we do have an estimate for an appraisal of the two properties, which is, as most of you know, fairly important in moving forward with any type of development to know the property's worth. And some pre-development consultant considerations. We have a training identified, but looking at the timing, and then a project advisory team appointment if this is something that council is wanting to move forward with. Staff has put together a suggestion of who those team members will be, and we have checked with all of them, and all of them have said yes, that they're open to serving in that capacity. So I know that was a lot of questions to start off with. And I think I would like to point out, I think the most important part, the project parameters, which I think council was really wanting for Housing Commission to drill down on the last time we spoke. What does this look like? What is Housing Commission making a recommendation for? So that is in the request for qualifications, and they're bullet pointed in the staff report, but I'll read them off. So the project must benefit households at 120% area median income or less, with an emphasis on projects that are at 60 to 100% AMI identified as a priority. The project must maximize the number of units on the site with a goal of density. So Community Development Department has provided the maximum number of units allowed per our code with the current zoning, and that is 7 units on the 8th and Midland property and 14 units on the Iddings property. Ownership and rental models will be considered. Home ownership is identified as a priority. And long-term public benefit is required with a 30-year minimum timeline. So that is what we have incorporated into the RFQ to let developers know what is at least at minimum expected and also priority desired. And that is obviously up for discussion with council tonight. So I think I will stop talking there and see if we have any questions with that.
Hannah, why do we only have 30 years? Not only, that's a long time, but I know Aspen's been doing this for a while, and it's a problem when those things expire.
30 years, it has been pretty standard in the affordable housing world. LIHTC projects go by that timeline, low-income housing tax credit projects, excuse me. But there are an increasing number of affordable housing projects that require longer affordability timelines. So that is, if it's something that City Council is interested in making a longer timeline, it's certainly doable. And Carl might have some legal points to make on how those timelines work and what it means for the city if they're longer, say 90 years, which is also something that we see.
Yeah, so kind of one of the struggles we have is that if you are doing, if they are too long, the courts have considered it to effectively be a transfer, which triggers some requirements under our charter to get to a vote. So we've typically sort of worked in the 25 to 30 year range as being reasonable. Courts have pretty consistently held anything that goes out past 40 or 50 years is a transfer.
Thank you. Other questions? Go ahead, Charlie. Then Shelley.
Yeah, just a couple of things, Hannah or whoever in the commission wants to discuss it. I mean, I'm looking at these criteria. First of all, I like the projects. I like what you guys are doing. I want to, my view as we go forward, if we can, I look at the cost to the city. We don't have a lot of free funds floating around, but if we can do something to support this, and if that's just a donation of land or maybe some waiver of fees or things, like stuff that I certainly, as one council member, would look at as a positive light. How do you have we talked about to developers about how we can try to make sure that these are home ownership units? I think it's one of the frustrations that many of us have expressed, and that is that most of the developments coming through from private entities are all, rental units and not home ownership. And some of that may have to do with the economic, that stimulus. I forgot what that program is that came in a couple years ago where you have to hold the property for 10 years. I always forget that term, but
opportunity.
Pardon?
Opportunity zone.
Thank you. Opportunity zone. Yeah, that's it. So I guess, Hannah, my question is, have you guys talked to, or anybody else, you talked to developers, and can we make all these, if we get all 21 units, can we make them ownership? I think that would be a phenomenal boon to the people in this income category to give them a chance to get into home ownership.
Definitely, and I see some head nodding from our commissioners, so I definitely don't want to take all of the floor. Commissioners, did you guys want to address that with some of the conversations that we've had, or I'm happy to as well?
I'll step in first, Zelendol. I think that we feel there were a wide variety of options that were available to us to be recommending as part of the RFQ. And I do think that some of us were really wanting to promote homeownership as a priority because particularly of how many rental units have been going up around and we were not seeing homeownership. But we were not sure what council wanted, where we wanted us to go in terms of recommendations, and also wanted to give as a request for proposals where the developers were going to go, what they were going to recommend, and not try and limit the flexibility there. So that's why various forms of ownership and development were mentioned in the RFQ with a priority towards home ownership. But certainly I think that if council wants to focus on home ownership, that's where we can go with the RFQ, depending on the direction of council.
Thanks, Ellen. Sumner, go ahead.
Sure. Answering your question, Charlie, at this point, tonight we're going to ask you to allow us to proceed with the donation of land and probably waivers and money if you're willing. But bearing in mind, we don't know the answers to this yet. And so we are also at this time asking for flexibility. So as we reach out to prospective partners, we have the flexibility. And that's why our priority, we will favor home ownership for sure. A lot of us were excited at what is the Basalt Summit project over there by the high school involving Habitat and multiple partnerships. That's all home ownership. So that's been our preference, but we don't know what kind of interest, and in this crazy building environment and cost environment, we don't know what we're going to get yet. So yes, we would like flexibility. It's not impossible. It's the there are all kinds of probability. We may come to you with similar projects on both parcels, with one project on one parcel, different project on another, or we might strike out. We hope not. So the answer is, yeah, our bias is toward home ownership because Glenwood's been lacking in those units for sure, for a variety of reasons. But we'll be asking for a lot of flexibility as outlined in this because we don't know the answers yet. And we will then be coming to you when we get answers for at least one more round of approval for projects that best meet the criteria that we've set out.
Thanks, Sumner and Ellen. Just to go off of that, in the conversations that we did have, we met with large employers, RAFTA, the hospital, financing, and as you are all aware, housing is a very complex problem. And so the answers were different. There's definitely interest. And like Ellen and Sumner said, we realized that home ownership is a priority, so we want to weight that heavier, but we didn't want to discount the possibility that we might not get any developers able to do that. So there are some next steps, and it's really why we started with an RFQ as opposed to an RFP, because we need to work with the developers to develop this plan and see what's feasible for them. So a very iterative process going forward. Thank you.
Go ahead, Shelley, and then Councilor Davis.
I just had a real quick question on the kind of term of the land. And if it's one of the questions is it a preference of council? Do we sell the land or do we hold on to it and do a long-term lease? I kind of prefer the lease option to keep control of it. And I'm just wondering, Carl, can we push that limit to that 40 or 50 years versus, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we absolutely can. And part of that sometimes too on these kinds of projects is that, you know, it's when you can show that it's tied to a specific financing mechanism, and then also, you know, what happens at the end of that lease term is pretty clearly spelled out. Those are kind of some factors that might be looked at.
Councilor Davis. While he's struggling unmuting himself. There we go.
Two things, I guess. One for Hannah. The 120% figure, that's the same that we have on the deed restricted ADU program, is it not?
Yeah, the 120% is the maximum that we allow in our voluntary program and our new inclusionary zoning. But in those areas, it's been an average. So you can go up to 120, but average of the units, yes.
And it seems like to me, you know, that you'd certainly get a lot more density if it's not home ownership. Once you fall into home ownership, if you're not a condo project, you'll get a lot more housing out of it if it's in a rental program of some kind. Anybody have a comment about that? Or?
Well, maybe I'll make a comment about that. I think there's all types of home ownership. You know, certainly people like the terraces, their density with parking and topography is probably completely maxed out with what the code was at the time, and that's all home ownership. So I don't know. The Red Bluff condos over here, I'm pointing to them because, you know, that's where they are, my neighborhood. Those are all home ownership as well. So I don't necessarily think, I mean, our traditional view, you know, single family house, maybe townhome being the ideal home ownership. I don't think that home ownership would be precluded from density, but I'll let Hannah say the same thing in a different way or completely disagree with me.
Looks like Shelley might have an answer for that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a lot of discussion about this on the Housing Commission, and just the conversation with some of the employers in the area. And I don't know what your employees are like, Steve, but a lot of, you know, talking to some of the larger employees, the main thing they hear and see is we've had so many apartments coming online lately. That's a lot of what's being built. That there's just that lack of smaller for purchase units. They've got long-term employees that would like to get into the housing market and have a permanent, you know, housing and home that they can stay in Glenwood versus forever rising rents and eventually being pushed out of the city. So again, it ties into our whole employment thing, and what they're hearing from their employees is that that's what the need is. So I think that's kind of where that came from.
Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna add, I know that you have to have flexibility, and I appreciate what both Hannah and Sumner have said, you know, when you put out the RFQ, but my only concern about putting RFQ, it says, you know, we want to have, if the council senses home ownership, if we start putting out, you know, apartments or, you know, rental units versus home ownership units, whether it's condos or otherwise, that we may discourage developers from coming to us with home ownership and encourage the apartments because of, as I understand, some of the issues that are pushing that are the current cost of construction and things like that. And I know there's some insurance issues, but maybe as a city we're in a little better position for HOAs and things like that. But I certainly just, anything we can do to encourage, if we're going to do this, and I think it's a good idea, home ownership, I would certainly like us to do.
Thanks. Ellen, and then Sumner.
So I get unmuted. I just wanted to go back for a couple of points that in addition to the workforce housing issue, there's a lot of concern about people who grew up in Glenwood being able to stay here and grow up with their families and have homes long-term, because that's where they grew up, their parents and grandparents are. And we want to be really responsive to that continued livability in the community, as well as allowing people who work here to live here. And that's go to school, have their kids go to school here, have larger families, and not just, a lot of the rental units are small apartments. And we have single family parents, we have families with, you know, larger numbers of kids, and they can fit into a studio or 1 or 2 bedroom. And so we were trying to address some of those long-term needs of livability within the community. And the other thing that we've discussed that isn't really reflected that much in the RFQ in terms of costing is we did talk with some people about modular housing and some of the methodologies for construction that might be less expensive, that could be suitable for these parcels. So I wanted to raise those 2 issues as well.
Thanks, Ellen. Sumner.
Well, I just wanted to say again, we're looking for a lot of flexibility. The bias is clearly home ownership. We don't know who's going to show up, but I know, for example, the project in Basalt, which would be, we're dealing, if we want high density, we're dealing with pretty small units, whether they be rental or homeowner. But I know Habitat, at least initially, is excited that we might even be out there offering something. And up in Basalt, Steve, if you haven't seen that project, they're doing duplexes, triplexes, and I haven't heard anything that say they wouldn't do 4plexes, 6plexes, and their home ownership townhomes as well. And Charlie, there will be, you know, the next step, subject to your pending, hopefully, approval tonight, there's going to be the advisory team that's going to carry this to the next level. And I think Sean, who's not here, pointed out, you know, and he does all the facilities up at CMC, not to lock ourselves into, oh, let's give us an RFP right away. That there would be, first of all, we need to see what kind of indications of interest. How do we publicize this legally? Carl, that would be an issue too, what we can or can't say. But it might be a 2-step process where we get an indication of interest, do meetings or tours, question and answers, respond to those questions and disclosure with the bias of the council. And then we actually get the formal RFQs based on the ones we at least want, depending on interest. So it's going to proceed slowly, but with those parameters clearly in mind.
Yeah, you know, and I guess some of my comments is there seems to be, the broader the RF, like I'll call RFI, request for interest. I think Sumner attributed that to you. You know, I think I'm hearing a lot of things that are necessarily in conflict, but don't necessarily square either. You know, we're desperate for the community conversation about this missing middle, townhomes, duplexes, triplexes. Where is that versus our desire for density and to really max out the number of units we can get because of scalability? We're talking about our desire, you know, again, to have families be able to grow up and grow into these kind of properties. You know, but if you make them for sale, then you lose out, the developer loses out on the opportunity zone tax incentives. So that's in conflict. I strongly would desire townhomes that are high density, that are for sale, but we have a lot of headwinds on that. I think when you talk about things like the you know, even the conflict of the Iddings property in doing something that is relatively high density or whatever density at that property without a South Bridge in place, I don't know how we can go to the county and say, stop stop building and putting all this pressure on our one escape route when we don't have a south bridge. I think that property is much more, I'm much more open to having the conversation if there was a south bridge in place. I think if not, it's really hypocritical of us to develop something, no matter how high a value, for that property without that in place. And then, we talked about modular construction and doing something, with cheaper construction. I know we don't mean cheaper, because I think like Cardiff is a great example. The parking there is a nightmare and everything, but it's made with cheap, not substandard construction. It's high density. It's got a great mix of small lots, townhomes, ADUs, something like that. Really does require, us to have, if there's a parcel of land where we own a couple dozen acres, we could be having a much different conversation. But if you look at the parcel on like 8th Street, I don't know that that's the spot. At some point, 8th Street crossing, the confluence area is going to be an alternate downtown, event area and retail center. So that spot, kind of connecting that and Meadows, which provide a third of our sales tax, I don't know if that's the spot to go cheap materials, which again conflicts with having something affordable that makes it attractive. So I guess I say all of that to say, we're just in this weird spot right now with tax incentives, with materials, with location, with our egress, that it's just tough. So I'm all about, and 120% AMI is not, it's not cheap yet. It's still like 120% AMI. Everybody would look at this community and go, wow, that's still incredibly expensive. And that AMI is not getting cheaper, because as places we just have heard are hiring people for $20, $25, $30 an hour right from the restaurants, that AMI will continue to go up. So it's almost like we're chasing our tail a little bit with these things. So all that being said, I would be in favor of making it as broad as possible. I don't know how I feel necessarily about just giving away land and waiving all the fees to get 100% AMI for medium density with none for sale. I don't know how I feel about that, but I think that's why we want to make it as broad as possible to get a creative developer who can start horse trading. We need to have people be able to have this a quality of life, and part of that is getting home ownership and having a little space to be able to consider them growing up in it. So I guess those are kind of my comments. I'll probably try to say them again tonight as we talk about this during council, but for the purpose of this work session, I guess I'm in favor of making it as broad as humanly possible to encourage creativity. Go for it, Sumner.
I appreciate that, Jonathan, and I think the commission would agree that by casting out a broad net, and this is, we view this as kind of a unique situation for Glenwood because it hasn't been done. So are these the ideal parcels? No. Would we love to have 40 acres? Sure. But it's not been done. We don't know what's going to come to us. So council, that's why we want to cast broad enough. And then we can narrow it, or the advisory team would do the narrowing and come to something, hopefully come up with something attractive, maybe plural, for council. And we don't even know what council it's going to be, because this is not going to be a fast process. So that's why the commitment in spirit of the land and fees allow us to go forward to begin exploring and see if we get reasonable partners without any firm commitment until we have a project that's met our parameters, preferably, like you say, John, the lower level of our parameters, and only then would council then make a commitment. So I think it's important to proceed with the experiment. And also regarding rental, a tricky one is we've had the possibility of employers wanting to buy the unit, to do a development of units, so a local employer would own it, but then they would rent it to employees, another high demand area. So we're hoping we can throw it out broad enough to get interest and then bring back something quality to the council.
Go ahead, Ellen.
One thing I just wanted to mention as a component of rental that is mentioned in the RFQ, but we haven't really talked about, is senior housing. There's a question about having senior housing, which is often rental housing, but it's a subset of some of the rental housing we've seen around that's not really been focused on. So I wanted to raise that that component of rental housing to consider.
Thanks, Ellen. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, and with that note, Ellen, we've also talked in the past. First of all, I've been sitting in on the Housing Commission meetings as the alternate, and these guys are doing a fantastic job. So I want to point that out. But on the senior housing, that often opens up other housing in the area, which is part of our problem. We just have no inventory. And so that's why I like that idea of these people who are ready to downsize and make other houses available, not obviously at the affordable rates that we could offer in one of these two situations, but at least it starts giving us some inventory.
Any other question or general comments? This will be back on our agenda this evening to further discuss and give official direction on, but for the purpose of this conversation, do we have any other broad strokes? Shelley?
I was just wondering if like a general direction from the council, do we want to go through and discuss, are we okay with putting forward money for cost of appraisal, that kind of pre-development workshop, if that comes up from Jaffa? You know, if the Housing Commission and along with this project can go ahead and apply for that and work for a pre-development kind of, it's a technical advisory team. And I think the second round of that is coming up in the summer, if that's right, Hannah. And then that project strategic team. So it maybe if council's willing to give a little bit of direction to the commission on those items, that would be great. Or do you want to wait?
I think I want, there's only, because there's only 5 of us here. Ingrid's not going to be here this evening, but Tony will. I think it'd be good to maybe get one more council person involved tonight while we're having that conversation. I mean, I think ultimately whatever we decide is going to come back to us, and I think it's important enough to have all 7 of us kind of at least have a voice or be able to discuss and debate it. I just get a little sketchy when there's only 5 of us giving direction, about something I think we're all passionate about. So if that makes sense, go ahead, Deborah.
I was just going to agree and say, I think this is a complicated enough issue that I would really appreciate you guys taking a vote so we know exactly what it is council wants tonight.
Yeah, and I guess I would also say, you know, the person who's got the by far most experience in local real estate will not be here tonight. So I'm interested where the conversation. I don't think we should kick it to another meeting, but I think if it's close, I think, you know, I'd like to entertain a motion to continue so we can all have that conversation. I think Ingrid's voice is just super important from what she sees and hears, and I would hate to miss out when we have that kind of expertise on council to not have that voice. So if it's a 6-0 vote, sorry, Ingrid, I guess your voice is not going to be that important, but I think if it's close, we should potentially continue it to the next meeting. Is everybody okay with that in general? Okay. Steve, you are an oak.
If I may, Mayor, before we end, just to give a little bit more background while you guys are here, and obviously we'll go over this with the full team. Bobby Hodge, actually, who is also our newest Housing Commission member, she does work in property management and real estate. So she has been a great addition for us. I believe she actually works for the same company that Ingrid does. Might be wrong on that. But as far as moving forward with this, I believe I included in there that the funding points, the appraisal, we do have the estimate for 3,000 on the 2 properties. And the technical advisory, not technical advisory, but pre-development, development consultant aspect, there's a range there depending on, but from our training team, and we just wrapped up on Tuesday with our final training with them. I had a conversation on what is the actual cost for pre-development, and that can range a lot. But what they said is Glenwood Springs is actually in a very good position to not need a whole lot from here. And so Jen Lopez, she actually runs a group called the Moxie Project, and she does affordable housing consultant all over the state, was one of our trainers. Was saying there is the possibility to set a, if with council's approval, a small amount of, pre-development costs that shall not exceed. She threw out 10,000 as a starting point, just for a little bit of the assistance on selecting that developer and finishing up the RFQ process and things of that nature. The Housing Commission is obviously looking to be very creative with this project in funding because we know that is extremely tight. So that is why we're looking at the CHAFA technical training. And Shelley, they said that the next round of applications, which are competitive, will be in the fall. I think a lot of the housing commissioners are chomping at the bit. And so waiting till the fall might be a little bit of cooling their heels. And it's not guaranteed that we get that grant from CHAFA to do that training, but then it would provide a lot of the pre-development consulting that we're in need of, which includes development of a pro forma to see financial feasibility for this project. So I just wanted to give a little bit of explanation on those 2 points, and we can reiterate that later in council meeting, but put it out there to see if you guys had any questions there.
Thanks, Hannah. Is there anything else? Go ahead, Summer. You're muted, Sumner.
Sorry, there's one other item that's related to this on a tangent regarding housing inventory in Glenwood. And we'd want to at least raise it to council awareness and maybe some legal guidance. And that is proactively, which staff has started to do, looking at the preservation of our mobile home communities, because there is one of our largest sources of affordable housing that potentially under redevelopment could be a tremendous loss of inventory. And we've seen what happened in Basalt with that. So I guess at this point, the commission would like to at least raise it to council level to kind of put it in a priority status somewhere that, yeah, it is a priority or not. That's up for council to decide. It's a priority for the commission to decide. There's a group to look at engagement with out of Boulder Thistle. Hannah has plenty of information about that, and she's already started tracking the home ownership. And a question to Carl would be, is there a precedent, and what would be the means, if any, to begin exploring rights of first refusal or options on these properties? Because once they go for sale, it's too late. The odds are the city will lose that inventory. So just want to escalate it up to your level and let you, it's a priority for us, and see if it's a priority for council. It doesn't take any action right away, except maybe allowing staff and legal and planning to pursue it further. So thank you.
Go ahead, Shelley.
And if that's something that council's interested in, I believe there are some new state regulations that were passed, maybe Carl knows, but was it last year, that do help. They'll like notify a city, or they'll help give an option or work with the community, the tenants of a mobile home park, in working on, like their own ownership, taking that on and working through that process. So I don't know what all that's about, but maybe that's something we could ask Carl to bring.
Yeah, I can certainly take a look at it. I don't remember off the top of my head. Sorry.
So maybe a little bit, I just had a meeting with the director of Thistle, which is the group that helps residents of mobile home parks purchase the property. And some of the state regulations that came out are a little bit over my head, but I've grasped enough. And notices do go out to residents when a seller or the owner is intending to sell. And then they have 90 days to actually get a financing deal together, which I'm sure is, you guys all know, that's really and so I was talking with Andy, the director, about, you know, how the city could possibly best position itself to support either the residents if they're interested in something like that. And we did have a great conversation there. So I think Housing Commission has been bringing this up quite frequently. And as we've seen 4 mobile home parks sell in the region recently, and the state tracks all that, obviously, I think it's something that we don't want to miss out on. So just from a staff perspective, we're kind of dipping a toe in that water to see best practices, but also making sure that the city is more of a supportive role to the residents of the parks that we have.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, we can talk about it tonight, but having right of first refusal or just being aware of things that are about to hit the market does us no good when we don't have money to make an offer. We don't have a dedicated revenue for affordable housing like Pickens County does or Eagle County. So it's, I think it's a good exercise to contemplate what would happen. And if we ever want to be landlords where we're buying properties and as a municipality, because it's in the public interest to maintain housing, our investor tolerance for a 2% cap rate versus an 8%, well, 6% usually around here anyway, that's considered good anymore. But if we're able to have even a break-even cap rate, but yet say it's in the public good, that might be something we'd want to get involved in. But other than that, I don't know how we can really get involved in that when we just don't have a dedicated revenue stream. And so I think that's really where this conversation, where I'd like to see the next conversation happen is how do we find that revenue stream? But that's for another work session. That's definitely not for tonight. I'm going to make Ellen and Sumner solve that and come back to us. And Aaron, you can help as well by the next meeting, if that's something you guys can do. That's a joke. You don't actually have to solve that problem. Is there anything else for the good of the people?
Do you have a guesstimate? I see we're pretty far on the agenda tonight. Do you have a guesstimate as when we might hit the agenda? Is there any way to predict that tonight?
You know, I think what would be awesome is if Hannah has everybody's cell phone. That
just text us.
Is that okay? Can we do that? Because I mean, I would love to say there is a time listed next to your agenda item. I don't know what that time is, but I would say be prepared to be early, but don't be disappointed if you're late.
Could you text us, Hannah? When it's the agenda item beforehand, if you're around?
I certainly can do that, Sumner. Obviously, you're on my speed dial. Ellen and anyone else from the Housing Commission, if you want to shoot me an email with your phone number, I'm happy to send that out.
Thank you.
Great. I've just created a precedent for staff to now let everybody who's interested in something know, because they're going to text them personally. Sorry.
Just from a technical point of view, since I haven't gone to many council meetings via Zoom, do I just go to the website and then for the council and then click on the public meeting? There's a link there.
Yes. There is, if you go to I think if you type in City of Glenwood Springs City Council agenda, it'll bring you to where the agenda site is. And if you get on this night's agenda, it's the top on the agenda. There's a link.
Okay, thank you so much.
And it's also the same link that we're currently using.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Voice. Thank you, everybody. Anything else for the good of the order? Charlie?
Thank you so much.
Early. Thank you, Ellen, Sumner, Aaron, Bobby, for all the work you do. I know this is not easy work, but we really do appreciate it. It's really helped define our conversations this last, 2 years, year and a half or so. Council, we'll see you back here at 6:15.
Thanks all.